Hi guys. So we're doing another reaction video. This one's from TrekCulture. When I made the decision to start doing reaction videos, I was actually thinking about TrekCulture because I disagree with a lot of what they say in their videos. So I picked this one. I haven't watched it before. I'm pretty sure I'm going to disagree with some of this. So here we go. This is going to be 10 Star Trek villains who were actually right. Before we go any further, make sure to click like and subscribe. That way you'll get to see more content like this. Also, to help other people find this content. You can also join my Patreon. There'll be links down below. And a reminder at the end of the video. For now, enjoy the rest of the video.
Go on, let's do a little bit of a controversial one then, will we? Let's look at those super villains in Star Trek who actually might have had a point. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 Star Trek villains who were actually right. Number 10, Duras. No one's about
No way.
to say that Duras was a likeable man. Not only did he orchestrate the wrongful accusation of Moog, and by extension his family, for the Romulan attack on Kittimer, but he also murdered Kalar to keep the secret. He also assassinated Kempek, but what Klingon hasn't murdered his superior in order to rise up the ranks? The questionable methods aside, Duras was attempting to seize power in the Klingon Empire while also keeping his family name clean. It must be remembered, though, that while Duras certainly employed Romulan techniques in his acts, the bomb on Kempek's ship, it was his sisters who openly allied with the Romulans.
Now, remember, Duras set up the Kittimer massacre. Yes, his sisters were worse. Sort of. But Sean's a Duras apologist. That's what's happening here.
By the time of the Civil War, Duras attempted to shift the blame to Moog's family to ensure that the House of Duras would rise to lead the Empire.
Which is not honorable. Even under Klingon honor, it is not honorable to cause a Klingon colony to be massacred by Romulans and then blame someone else for it just to keep yourself clean because you're trying to do the best for the Empire. No. And this is a Duras family problem.
From his point of view, the Empire had weakened itself by allying with the Federation and had strayed too far from the imperial efforts of times gone by. His dubious relationship with the Romulans aside, it could easily be argued that his attempt to rebuild the strength of the Empire suffered more from his methods than his goals. By the time of his death, he was merely a symptom of a much larger problem in the Empire. His efforts, however dire they might have been for Worf and Starfleet, could well have started the Empire on a journey back to its former fearsome strength. Or, as Duras himself may have put it, he very nearly did make Kronos great again. Number 9.
I think that last comparison to Trump was really awesome.
Sloan. Star Trek Deep Space Nine offered viewers a look at the darker side of the future, long before Discovery made that darkness a light shading. One of the more controversial additions to Star Trek was the character of Luther Sloan and the organization Section 31. They are the secret police of the Federation, operating from the earliest days, working outside any and all jurisdiction to ensure that paradise is kept idyllic. It is a somewhat sad moment when Sloan espouses the naivete of believing that he wouldn't exist. Sloan's actions, though perhaps unimaginable to some, prove that Section 31 needed to exist to protect Starfleet from the idealists. There are many arguments to be made about wanting to live in a world where Section 31 didn't have to exist, but that would still leave the Alpha and Beta quadrants under the watchful eyes of the Zhat Vash, the Tal Shiar, and the Obsidian Order. Sloan's efforts to put Koval in the Romulan Senate would prove to secure peace for further decades in the quadrant, something Starfleet secretly condoned. As Odo noted, it certainly was a tidy arrangement. Number 8.
I'm not sure I agree with Sloan being secretly having a point. He was just doing his job. So maybe Section 31 had a point. I also don't think Sloan was really presented as a villain. So we're going to have the same issue with Tain, because Tain is the Cardassian version of Sloan.
Tain. The fault, dear Tain, lies not in the stars, but in ourselves. Inabran Tain was the head of the Obsidian Order, the secret police of the Cardassian Union. Under his watch, the Cardassian military was kept in power with a continuing lack of regard for any personal liberties. For decades, he led, though it was his overstepping that secured his downfall. The combined operation between the Order and the Tal Shiar, in an attempt to wipe out the Founders, proved to be the end of the Order at least, while the Tal Shiar would slink back into the shadows.
That's also what provoked the Dominion. Without that, I don't think the Dominion would have come to the Alpha Quadrant.
The fallout, though, ironically, proved there was certainly a nugget of sense in his plan. Once the fleet was destroyed, the Cardassian military quickly lost control of the government, with the civilian Detapa Council taking over. This led to the Klingon invasion, as well as, eventually, Cardassia's alliance with the Dominion, ironically. One need hardly go into detail about what followed on from there.
Yeah, I'm not sure the Dominion would have come in without that move by Tane and, the Romulans, because that's what told the Dominion that the people in the Alpha Quadrant were a threat. If they had kept their mouths shut and just kept trading, I don't know if the Dominion War would have ever happened. So this is kind of a case of Cardassians bringing it on themselves. Now, of course, the reason the Dominion had to they had to single out the Federation was because if you look at the Alpha Quadrant at the time and you want to invade, the Federation was the biggest power, the production house. They're basically the United States. If you want to hit Cardassia or the Klingon Empire or the Romulans, you had to deal with the Federation, because even if you only attacked Cardassia through the wormhole, the Federation would have gotten involved. They would have cut you off somehow. Now, the Dominion allying with the Cardassians, it's a good story. I'm not sure it makes sense.
Tane's idea was certainly devastating with a Machiavellian twist, but the long-term ramifications for the Alpha and Beta quadrants would only prove that, at least in theory, his idea might have been one of the better ones in the end. Number 7. Seska. For Seska, there is a simple question one must ask themselves. Do you see where she was coming from? Though Chakotay and Janeway weren't in the know, Seska was never a part of either of their crews. She was a deep-cover Cardassian agent, one who was assigned to trail the Maquis before the incident with the Caretaker. Becoming stranded in the Delta Quadrant, based on a decision made by a Starfleet captain no less, was certainly never in the plan. When discovered swapping secrets with the Kazon, she very pointedly makes the argument that were Voyager a Cardassian vessel, everyone would be home already, referring to Janeway's decision to destroy the Caretaker's array. From a purely factual standpoint, she is right.
No, she's not. Cardassians wouldn't have been able to figure out how to use the Caretaker technology to get him back home.
Believes that the Ocampa could well have taken care of themselves, then it only makes Seska's point more valid, something that even Janeway herself would start to thaw toward, particularly in the episode Night. No one is arguing that Seska was good by any means, but had she been in charge, everyone would have been home in time for dinner, and none of the crew who were lost during Voyager's 7-year mission would have died.
Why did he bring up the question of whether or not the Ocampans can take care of themselves? That doesn't matter. When Janeway blew up the Caretaker's array, that cut off the Ocampans from their support. They had to figure out how to take care of themselves no matter what. That's a nothing burger. The bigger problem is that if they had left the Caretaker's array there and used this technology to go back to the Alpha Quadrant, there would have been nobody to prevent the Kazon from getting the array and getting the technology on it, and that would have upset the balance of power in the quadrant. Cardassians don't care. Federation cares. The Maquis crew are mixed, which you see throughout the show. They're mixed on that decision. I'm not going to give you that Seska was right about this. I'll give you that the Cardassian approach in that situation isn't necessarily wrong. It's definitely not Federation. That's why they're the Cardassian Empire, not the Federation.
Number 6. The Xindi. Now, hold on. Don't think I'm about to condone the murder of 7 million people, alright?
No, I don't think you're about to do that, Sean. Not at all. But if you're about to say that given the information they had, they were right to murder all those people and to try to destroy Earth, you're still wrong. I guess let's see what you're going to say.
If you do think that, I obviously need to hide my evil a little bit better. No, this one comes from a place of understanding the Xindi's point of view. They were a disparate race who, over time, had finally managed to form an incredible alliance between their peoples.
After they destroyed their own planet.
This, after the destruction of their homeworld, would seem to have been inconceivable at one point. They were then duped into believing that Earth would be responsible for another destruction. This, coming after so much sacrifice, pain and hard work, not to mention the question of their very survival, was easily something that needed to be stopped.
Yes, but planet killing isn't the answer.
The Sphere Builders manipulated them into the attack, and it was from a position of desperation that they began building their weapon. The very fact that most of them were able to listen to Archer and reason when the time came only solidifies the tragedy yet logic behind their position. To be fair, even we can't condone Commander Dolan. Guy was just a bit of a douchebag. Number 5.
I feel like Sean Ferrick here really misses the point. What the Xindi did could not be justified. And you see that in the show. What's his face? The guy on the council. The one that's closest to the human. I don't remember his name right now. You see him asking how many children died in his in the attack made by the machine that he built. And most of the Xindi getting on board, it's 3 out of 5. So it is technically most. We're talking members of the council. So it is technically most, but not by much.
Ruafo.
Oh, also, every time while they're in the Delphic Expanse, every time they ask somebody about the Xindi, people get all scared because the Xindi are ruthless. They are not good people.
Star Trek Insurrection is the next generation era film that's often overlooked. Both of its predecessors are stronger in terms of story and execution, while Nemesis is so often reviled that it earns discussion in that way. One of the greatest shames to come from this is the fading of F. Murray Abraham's Ruafo. The Sona are a fascinating species. They, with the rest of the Baku, discovered the regenerative properties of the planet in the Briar Patch, but they were unwilling to sacrifice all technology to enjoy it. Ruafo's plan was simple: ally with the Federation, thus giving them liberty to operate in their territory, then harvest the planet's radiation. While the impetus for this plan may have been Ruafu's drive for revenge, the fact that it's the plan to use the radiation to help billions of people, particularly during the Dominion War, can't be overlooked. There were 6
Okay, yes, they should have negotiated with Balki, Bartakamus, or whoever, I forget what these people are called. Yes, they should have negotiated and found a way to be able to build like a hospital or something that would help, hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people every month or whatever. Yes, they should have done that.
600 Baku on the planet's surface. Patrick Stewart was quoted as saying that, were it his choice, he probably would have moved them. Ruafo's methods were indefensible, of course, but his inspiration could have saved the lives of countless citizens.
And turned it into a non-renewable resource, unless Federation scientists were able to reverse engineer this stuff and figure it out or whatever, and start developing technology based on it. Fine, whatever. But if they couldn't do that, the plan that Ruafo had was going to make the planet uninhabitable. That was his plan.
Number 4. Khan Into Darkness. Khan Noonien Singh, played by Benedict Cumberbatch in Star Trek Into Darkness, was a far cry from the obsessed maniac who stole the USS Reliant. This Khan, while still holding on to that tendency to dominate everyone, seemed to be far more pragmatic. He was discovered floating in deep space with the rest of his crew by Admiral Marcus. Revived, he was forced to work on a plan to build up Starfleet's armada, while also instigating Marcus's war with the Klingons. He was effectively woken from sleep and deposited into slavery. To make matters worse, Marcus ensured his compliance by threatening the lives of his entire crew, thereby forcing Khan into action. From Khan's point of view, attacking Starfleet headquarters made perfect sense, as it was they who attempted to subjugate him. He was then betrayed by Kirk while on board the Vengeance, before finally turning his full rage on Marcus. This Khan may have been a bit more brutal than the other iteration, but when one is pushed against the wall like that, there's certainly room for discussion on the topic. Number 3. The Diviner.
No, I don't think. The problem is that movie is dumb. So trying to find a villain, I'm trying to find a hero in that movie. That's just filler.
Star Trek Prodigy's Diviner, played by John Noble, had a simple mission to achieve.
Alright, I haven't seen Prodigy, so we're skipping this one.
Save his world's... It's hard to argue with that, or with the drive to want to prevent it either. Number 2. Commodore O.
Oh?
So, are we ever going to address those devastatingly destructive synthetic beings in the sky? No? Commodore O, perhaps the least popular Commodore in Starfleet history, was a Zhat Vash double agent, working from within Starfleet to destroy all synthetic life in the galaxy. She was almost entirely one-dimensional until one considers why she did what she did. Members of the Zhat Vash underwent the Admonition, which was effectively a story passed from member to member, heralding the destruction of all organic life in the universe at the hands of AI. There are probably more than a few writers and artists who are looking on this storyline a bit more kindly these days. The Admonition is so traumatic that people often do not survive, so knowing what O did, one can better understand her laser focus on her mission.
Okay, this is one of the problems I have with TrekCulture. No. The current fear that AI is going to take over writing jobs and, all sorts of creative jobs, it's like being afraid that there's a machine that can now assemble cars faster than a person can, and so they're going to be able to make more cars with fewer people, which actually happened. The whole anti-synthetic life form story is about genocide. Commodore O is trying to destroy a life form. These are people who can think and build and, do living person things. And if we go back to Measure of a Man, where Picard talks about them being slaves, which also comes up in Voyager with the holograms, this is something that keeps coming up, then there's no way Commodore O is right. She is trying to murder people. Now, okay, there is a way she's right. The problem with the Zat-Vash, whatever, is their approach is to wipe out synthetic life as it develops to prevent these alien synthetics from coming here and doing, wiping out all life in the galaxy. Okay, prevent the alien synthetics from wiping out all life in the galaxy is good. Doing it by genociding is bad.
Of course, bigger questions, like where was that Romulan fleet hiding, and have they all been vindicated when Soji opened the portal? The thing is, O was right. She was entirely wrong about how she went about it, and frankly, Mars wants a word, but Soji's actions prove that there truly was a devastatingly powerful enemy just waiting to come through and purge all organic life from the galaxy. In certain circles, O may be remembered as a great hero. Number 1.
Okay, I'll concede that O was right, since he pointed out not in the way that she wanted to go about doing it. Right motivation, wrong action. I'll remind you that in Buddhism, there's this concept of karma. You've probably heard of it. In order to get good karmic fruit, you have to have, say it with me, good intentions, good actions. O had good intentions, bad actions. She got bad karma. That's how it works.
Admiral Pressman. Although never confirmed on screen, a bit of gentle retconning would place Pressman firmly in the camp of Section 31. His experiments aboard the USS Pegasus on interface cloaking technology could have saved countless lives as the years went on, but it was his methods once again that proved to be his undoing. Remember, this is a man who not only conducted experiments on board a ship that eventually mutinied against him, but also felt confident enough in what he was doing that he tried again years later. This is not a man who operates in isolation, and he clearly had the backing of some higher-ups in Starfleet. The biggest issue was the violation of the Treaty of Algernon. This agreement expressly
That's not the biggest issue. That's the issue.
forbade Starfleet from developing cloaking technology. The thing is, they already had it, or at least a version of it. Section 31 was in possession of cloaked ships in the 23rd century. So could this not simply have been seen as an amendment to the agreement? If we are harsh for a moment and say absolutely not, then look at what came of the experiments. Starfleet was locked into the treaty for the rest of the 24th century, even after the Romulan supernova a mere 2 decades later. This, combined with the fact that Romulans, Klingons, and several other empires utilised cloaks while Starfleet lagged behind, certainly adds a bit more sympathy to a retelling of Pressman's story. That's everything for our...
Oh boy. The Federation didn't need cloaks. The Klingons originally didn't have any. They didn't have cloaking devices in the original series. That didn't happen until the movies. Also, remember that time that Kirk and Spock went and stole a cloaking device from the Romulans so that the Federation could reverse engineer it? So obviously this treaty happened either as a direct result of that or it happened later. That's all ignoring the fundamental issue here, which is Pressman was violating the treaty and needed to be stopped because of that. So I agree with Riker here. I do think Pressman should be retconned to Section 31, but that makes the story make even less sense because Section 31 would have just sent their own ship to go get the Pegasus and none of this would have happened in the first place. I'm going to give him, Sean Ferrick, that Pressman was right. I'll go along with that. But Riker and Picard were right to put a stop to it. This is a case where there isn't really a villain. This is why, as writers, we don't talk about heroes and villains necessarily. We talk about protagonists and antagonists. Pressman was the antagonist, but not necessarily a villain. The conflict that was there was among people who are nominally friends. Pressman's original decision isn't necessarily what resulted in the death of most of his crew. It's possible to mutiny caused that, actually. It's a much more complicated issue, and one thing Star Trek does somewhat badly very often is they give you a very complicated situation and then an overly simplistic resolution, and you feel unsatisfied, and Pegasus is one of those episodes where when it's over, you feel unsatisfied, which is what makes the series finale for Enterprise kind of unsatisfying because they picked the worst episode to pull a stunt like that with. They picked an episode that wasn't satisfying when it was a Next Generation episode, and they inserted the Enterprise season or series finale into that Next Generation episode. I'll give you. Pressman was right. Picard and Riker were right. There were no villains in that story. Right, so that's it. I'll probably do more TrekCulture in the future. I can't stop watching them, but I disagree with so much of what they say. Anyway, until next time.